Hey everyone, so this is going to be a bit of a different episode, not least because I've got Sean with me. Say hi, Sean.
Howdy.
So, Sean, you might have seen pop up on a bunch of places we've been already, and the two of us took a trip to Antalya in 2020, which now, of course, seems like super ages away. That's normally what I don't give away, like how long ago the episodes were actually filmed, so I can just sort of imply that they're like, oh, this was super recently, not like 2 calendar years ago.
Oh, I'm glad I don't have to pretend either.
And I wanted to get Sean in on this. Now, again, this is going to be tricky for me because I'm going unscripted for a change, which means I'm going to be far less funny and a lot more and R and O and whoops. It's also the way these episodes get made. Generally, the rule is whenever you say something in voiceover, you want to cut to footage of it if you can. But otherwise, this episode's going to take so long to make if I have to get a corresponding piece of footage. I know that doesn't sound like a big job, but trust me, that's what takes the time. Just sitting in the coffee shop, just going through like a couple of thousand clips, just trying to find that one thing you're mentioning.
I've seen Dave's list of huge library of clips. Is no enviable workload.
What I'm going to do is basically just cut in random sort of filler footage when cutting in specific clips would just take too long. So some of the time it's just going to be nice Antalya shots running in the background.
Yeah. If you use any of me, just Photoshop me to look more tanned.
Oh, well, I'm sorry to say, man. I film people really infrequently, and that actually includes you. I've barely got any footage of you whatsoever.
I thank you for that.
I wasn't even sure at the time we went out that I would make a travel episode about this. So this is the weird thing we're doing with the channel right now. We're sort of starting to pivot over to history content, you might have noticed. It's because all the travel stuff we're doing, we're always going to all these historic sites anyway, so it kind of made sense to actually start zeroing on that specifically. But because of that, like the way you film a travel episode is very different to the way you film a history episode. Because for a travel episode, you need to film all the incidental things like your accommodation and stuff, you know, that you see out and about in the town, just all little random funny things. Whereas the history episodes, you pretty much skip all that and you don't bother pointing the camera out the window of the car for like 2 hours. You just film the stuff when you get there. That's why this episode's a bit strange, because at the centre of it sits these 7 cities around Antalya, which have these incredible, just unbelievable Roman ruins. And yet, stupidly, I don't actually want to show you all the footage for this yet, because in years to come, when we've got like Byzantine episodes and Roman episodes to come...
Yeah, actually, having been on holiday with Dave, having travelled with him, he does seem to take very much more footage than ever appears in his videos. Yeah. So it's going to be used somewhere down the line.
We are going to pay this off in years to come, but it might be a while. Like, these things have really gotten way the hell out of control.
As I say, the library of Dave is huge.
So, as a result, like, it's this sort of weird mixture where I want to make an episode about Antalya and all the amazing sort of ruined cities around it, but I don't actually want to burn through all of my ruined city thing, and not least because that episode, with all of that, is about a 2-hour thing to properly dive into them. So, to try and keep this down to a trim... I want to say 20 or 30 minutes, but I'm sure I'm just making a rod for my own back. There's no way we're keeping it much below that, especially unscripted. So anyway, just wanted to kind of give you a bit of a vertical slice of what our trip looked like, because we did this in basically 3 days flat. We arrived at about 10 p.m. And then left about 10 p.m. 3 days later.
Wow, it does seem... In my memory, it seems longer than that, but it was really 3 days.
Yeah, just three days.
Action-packed.
Yeah. And also, this was in 2020 when... not sure how many of you attempted to travel in 2020, but oh my goodness, it was a different world.
I got a lot of respect from people for pulling it off, for being able to say, yeah, I just went to Turkey for a few days.
Well, we were so stupid, crazy lucky. But if you're watching outside of the UK, this might not make sense, because in different countries, the experience would have been different. But basically, all through the summer, there'd been this weird, like, whack-a-mole thing happening where it's like, oh, which country's going to be struck off the list next? Oh, it's this one. We were actually, I remember us being in Croatia in the summer, and we'd been sort of like, come on, keep Croatia, because Croatia had been pretty, you know, like low case numbers. And then, I remember the moment we were sitting in Šibenik, beautiful historic city, yeah, and this was sometime in July or August 2020, I can't remember exactly. And this news came through, like, oh, maybe Croatia's going on the list. And at the time, I was drinking an espresso, and the inside of the rim of this espresso mug had printed may you live in interesting times. It's like, dude, not now. That's not what I need right now.
I thought you were going to say you were kind of reading kind of coffee detritus, you know.
Yeah, it's like
tea leaves.
I'm a seer. I'm like looking at the sort of the espresso trails of like, what does this mean? So yeah, by the time it got to September, like almost all of the doors around, like most of where EasyJet flies, had slammed shut from one way or the other. So they're all red list. You can't go there. It's not happening. And by those total fluke, Turkey was one of the 2 or 3 places that you could still fly, you know, that aren't like the Pitcairn Islands or, you know, like these obscure, Atlantic territories or something. I don't know where the Pitcairns are.
No, don't ask me.
Yeah, well, sound off about it in the comments. And it was Turkey and Greece, and so we did Antalya, and the week after we flew back, they were like, right, it's off, you can't do Turkey anymore, it's gone. And so that literally just left Greece, and again, by another complete fluke, that's when we filmed the Lefkada episode. You can see how out of sequence these are, because that came out years ago now. I filmed the Lefkada episode, and again, about a week after I came back from that, I was like, right, Greece is off the menu, everywhere is off the menu. You can you'll just go back to your bedrooms and you think about what you've done.
Yeah, we were supremely lucky. I'm very grateful for it.
Such a bonkers sort of fluke. Anyway, let's actually get to it. So, again, I don't have tons of footage of us actually arriving, because it was at night and you don't get much good coverage at that time. So let's just cut to the morning. I had a quick sort of, like, just circled round Antalya.
Yeah. Dave always gets up earlier than me. He's definitely the morning person between us. So my usual experience is kind of having my shoulder jostled by some kind of very highly awake and alert Dave. Is like my antithesis in the morning.
I'm never quite sure how to wake. I try not to jostle too much. It tends to. I want to have like a tender sort of shoulder tap, but not a shoulder stroke. That would be a bit too much.
And he gets some kind of like some pig-like grunt from me.
But then what the problem is? So I'm around like 6 a.m. sort of filming all the stuff around town, just like a Duracell bunny. But then by 10 p.m. at night, when all the people I go with generally are like, oh yeah, let's go for drinks and everything. Like I want to, but I'm just the worst company because I'm super done. So okay, I got a quick sort of scuttle around Antalya. It is a really sort of beautiful city. We were staying in the I think it's pronounced Kaleshi or Kaleshi, which is the historic town. It's super great for getting lost in. Very literally. You like, wait, which street do I need to go down to find my accommodation? It's total maze in there.
But it's strange because on the outskirts, it is very grid-like and very like a modern city. If you look at the roads, it's very, very much kind of like a New York kind of city plan.
Yeah, pretty much. So we were staying in this accommodation called, I want to pronounce it right, Gizli Bahçe. My understanding of Turkish consonants is not great.
That's exactly how you say it, yeah.
Okay. And we headed out to our first historic site, which is a place called Temessos. Give us the rundown on Temessos.
Temessos, the first thing you got to know about it is that it's stupendously beautiful. It's just, forget the historic site. If there was nothing there and you were there, it would be there'd be a wow factor. You'd be looking over a cliff into a huge valley of pine forests surrounded by other mountains. But Temessos itself, it's an ancient city. Alexander the Great tried to assault it at one point. I think he was being a bit opportunistic and wondered if he could. But yeah, Alexander did not succeed in assaulting Temessos and took his anger out on Sagalassos instead. But
which we're actually going to on day 2. So
yeah, and there was an unknown. Well, there was an earthquake of an unknown date that destroyed the aqueduct, which is probably why it was abandoned.
Oh, because it destroyed their drinking spot.
Yeah, exactly. So it's high altitude, so... Cool.
Yeah, well, I mean, Temessos was, like, absolutely beautiful. Yeah, like, the national park on the way in was stunning. We actually... it's so extensive that we realised we spent so much time filming the stuff on the way in that I was like, oh, we better actually hurry to the main bit. And it's weird, like... When you go to an ancient, let's say a Roman site in England, for example, like, so this is Littlecote that you're seeing on the screen. This is a remarkably impressive one. You can sort of see the footprint of a villa there, and I mean, it happens to have some great mosaics. But like, this is like, whoa, steady on there for like 2,000-year-old ruins. That's pretty good going by English standards. So then you get to Turkey, and they've seriously got like more ancient like Greek and Roman ruins they know what to do with. So when you get there, the site hasn't been cleared, you've just got all of the masonry just all lying there pretty much where it fell.
Yeah, it's incredible.
And I mean, and it seemed at first, when we, like, Temessus was the first one we went to, so it was like, oh, this is a bit weird, they've kind of not tidied it up. But when you actually see, look on the map, when you actually see the number of ancient cities there are, it's like, oh, grief, yeah, you never would get around to tidying all of them.
Indeed. Well, I think it's probably actually my favourite concentration, that region, concentration of historical sites is because it's so they're so often paired with just naturally beautiful scenes. Everything about it is picturesque. So
that was Temessos, and as you said, the theatre is just like unbelievable. Like, the backdrop for it is just ridiculous. We're gonna have to sort of speed through these a bit more, because I did say at the top that we're not going to give too much of a historical deep dive. So we drove on from there, kind of down the coast to I was going to say Phaselis. That's the isn't that like the tiny little orange fruit that like you see in the supermarket sometime? And
Phaselis.
Yeah, no one knows. Oh, that's a physalis. That's right. This is Phaselis. On the way there, you drive along the coast, but a number of times sort of the mountains just shelve straight into the sea. So there's lots of sort of tunnels, and the highway system's actually pretty impressive.
Yeah, I'd say actually just road tripping is a real pleasure.
Yeah, I was going to say, what was you? Because I'm actually having driving lessons right now. I'm a 33-year-old man, and I'm just getting around to driving. Even after my wife and family and pretty much everyone has been telling me for the last 10 years, like, what, haven't you done this yet? So Sean was amazingly doing all the driving. What was your experience of driving out there?
Yeah, I found on the main highways and motorways, everything was really quite easy. I guess when you get into Antalya itself, on the outskirts you've got big junctions that could threaten to be confusing perhaps. But when you're in there, actually there are some idiosyncrasies, some quirks. So for instance, as you get in towards the inside of the city, you'll be on dual carriageways for some part. And really, you should not see these as dual carriageways at all. I think it's better just to view it as a one-lane road, and just the other lane is for parking and kind of street vendors. And so if you...
The number of times we nearly did a sort of Starsky and Hutch thing, where there'll be some sort of fruit vendor with like an entire rack of oranges, just full on selling them from one lane of this major highway into Antalya, just like it's no thing.
Indeed, and then you have to stop and merge into the traffic that you just left. So
yeah, from what I recall, the Antalya locals are not shy about merging either. No. So you've got to just prepare to be cut up like at any time.
I don't mind that. I mean, I lived in Portsmouth for a while, so...
So we were driving down the coast to Phaselis, get that right. Because we're two grown men, we were making the habit of holding our breath every time we went through a highway tunnel.
Thinking that might not be achievable, but...
We got to Phaselis, and it's one of these... again, the ruins there are so beautiful. I really wish they'd sited the car park just slightly further away from the aqueduct. Like, it's beautiful, and yet I'm just trying to shoot this in such a way to like trim out all of the cars that are getting in the way. The other thing, and again, I mentioned, like, compared to English Roman ruins or whatever, this is just like running rings around anything we really have in England.
Yeah, it's quite a shock to see these sites so well preserved.
Yeah, like any of these sites just transplanted into England would probably be like one of the most significant Roman ruins in the whole country, and yet in Turkey it's like, oh yeah, we got like 10 of those.
Yeah, it's bizarre.
Well, that's the flex here. Like, you got all these beautiful Roman ruins, and then just to add, it's like, oh, and then there's also this beautiful beach as well.
Yeah,
like just have all the great spots in one place.
Yeah,
oh, come on, guys. Anyway, so yeah, Phaselis, really beautiful. Another like amazing theatre there, and loads of other bits. So we're not going to super deep dive into it. We were actually starting to kind of run out of time on that day. Like, I never quite factor in just how long it takes to drive between these places. You look on the map, it's like, it's like 5 minutes. It's really not. It's over an hour.
But I never mind a road trip.
Yeah, well, we certainly had like amazing scenery for it all the way.
Indeed,
like mountains and the coast, and oh my goodness. So we aimed for Olympos, knowing it was going to be a bit tight with the opening. And Olympos was kind of interesting. It's sort of a Roman city, sort of in a swamp, really.
Yeah.
A lot of it had been sort of submerged, and again, it's right by the coast. There's sort of a beach there, but the light was sort of going, and they were starting to usher people up. I think we have just over half an hour before they were closing the gates.
That's right. It did seem like quite a few different environments there. You had, your beach, and you had these what seemed like freshwater streams as well.
Yeah.
It was quite highly populated tourist-wise, and that wasn't true of everywhere we visited, actually. So
yeah, Termessos was kind of empty. Facilis, there seemed to be a few people on the beach, and there's a few people wandering around. But yeah, Olympos was like pretty rammed, actually.
It seemed like the place to be in. To go. It was gorgeous, though.
So again, I ran around getting as much footage as I could, and then we had to leave because it was closing. In fairness, the light wasn't super great like that. And normally, again, at places that are a bit remote like this, you wouldn't expect like them to be putting too much effort into the coffee, but this place was like absolutely spot on. Like,
and if you're on a road trip with Dave, in a situation like that where you're driving past kind of a long line of potential places to do coffee, there are at least 100 places that could give you coffee. Dave's got this sixth sense for kind of which one will be the reliable one for giving you the good quality stuff.
Well, the funny thing is, it's not even that complex. I've joked about this on the channel before, but you kind of look for the ones who actually put some effort into graphic design.
Okay.
And I know that's not necessarily like the window to the soul.
So the Beaver logo won you over?
Yeah, it's just like, hey, these guys know what they're doing with branding. They probably put a fair amount of attention into the coffee as well.
Yeah.
It generally works so far.
No,
there's a few like exceptions that prove the rule, but
I think I can think of one at least.
Yeah, it normally works out.
But Beaver itself, I recall that it had the hammocks, gorgeous spot. Yeah, very very reviving.
So we were kind of looking, it was pretty much dark by this point. We were looking for a restaurant to eat at, and there were quite a few that just sort of put a buffet out, and you sort of paid something initially and just grabbed from. So we sat down at one of those, and it was like okay, it was not amazing, but it wasn't that bad either. It was pretty alright.
Yeah.
We drove back at night. Let's talk a little bit more about our accommodation.
Yeah.
So we were quite fond of this place. It was actually we found it on Airbnb. It was a few rooms above what was a sort of like pub restaurant. And the food there and the atmosphere was pretty good. The funny thing about this place is, and I mean, this... You see, of the people I like to take on trips, I've got to gauge this differently because, as it turns out, I am just not really fazed by anything accommodation-wise. So, for example, what you are seeing here, this is indeed a cockroach that we just found upside down in the bathroom. Now, of course... For pretty much anywhere else, if you found that in your Airbnb, that's like an instant red flag. You're leaving like 1-star reviews, like, oh, this place is disgusting. And yet, funny enough, even just seeing that, I was just like, yeah, all right. Just hope it doesn't crawl into my bed.
I don't really mind. I remember actually being in Nepal once. I was 18, and we decided to get. There were 3 of us. We decided to get like a hotel room for 2, and someone would just sleep on the floor. Whoever pulled the short straw, and it was me. And I remember waking up with a. I'd obviously rolled on a cockroach in the night, and I went into the bathroom in the morning,
yikes.
saw it plastered against my rib cage, and just like trying to figure out what all the random bits of shell were on my pillow.
Oh, dude, okay, that's definitely worse. I was gonna say, just because I spent nearly a decade of my life kind of sleeping on the floors of the perfectly nice sort of rental accommodation I had in England. It was just generally all the music equipment was taking up all the space, and so I just take it as, I don't want to be too fussy about a space. Now, again, I don't really disparage anyone who, also was like, no, I want to stay in places that, I don't know, don't have vermin in them. That seems reasonable. I just find it strange that when I look at this place, and you can see from the fixtures, it looks like a little bit kind of scrappy. And I was perfectly happy with it. I was looking like, yeah, this works out. It was inexpensive. That's one of the main things I'm looking for.
Indeed.
Job done.
I think we are outliers generally for being so tolerant of cockroaches, but not perhaps for travellers. Perhaps we're fairly more normal for, a certain type of traveller, perhaps.
Yeah, maybe. I just wouldn't want to be the sort of person who's like, oh, yeah, no, if I don't have this insert name of luxury here, like, oh, I couldn't possibly... It's like, come on.
No.
There were some turkeys, like, outside the window who were really keen to let us know when the sun had risen.
Oh, and didn't you say... Oh, yeah, I recall that. I now travel with earplugs. Yeah, we've had donkeys, turkeys.
Yeah.
Wake us up.
I mean, general note on Turkey here. Maybe if you go so further into the east, you'll probably find some more sort of conservative Islamic kind of towns and cities there, and it's probably a bit different when you get into the rural parts. But in the west, it's very touristy. you could easily think you were just in Greece for a parts, apart from seeing the Turkish writing on storefronts.
Yeah.
And generally, you can find alcohol pretty much everywhere. It is pretty liberal. Yeah. I mean, I'm not exactly looking to sort of test the boundaries of that.
No, you wouldn't want to. But it does seem to me, it seems kind of comforting when you're walking towards your accommodation and you see places with people drinking outside of it, and some tattooed. But you met another bloke with dreadlocks.
Oh yeah,
I believe.
And so it's just nice that you can relax into being there. Like, unless you're really being spectacularly obnoxious or thoughtless, like it's so unlikely, specifically sort of in the east of west kind of coastal towns in Turkey, that you're going to run into any sort of aggro or something. Just so that's always good. Oh man, I got to. The funniest thing about our room was the design of the bathroom. Okay, when we found the cockroach, it was such that you could be on the toilet whilst also having a shower. The shower head was in such a position that if you're just really looking at your watch, gotta hurry this up, you can be using the toilet and taking a shower at the same time. I mean, what a forward-thinking kind of
Yeah, I mean, it's an oft-overlooked productivity hack, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, agreed. That's going to be next in some YouTube life hacks, like tired of going to the toilet and then getting in the shower.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was kind of comical. Anyway, like I said, the accommodation was essentially fine. I mean, I was fine with it, but your mileage might vary. Anyway, on to day 2. After a sort of quick breakfast, we headed out of Antalya. So this was one that I was really glad to have seen this. We were heading, it's about 2 hours north out of the city, so it's not exactly close by, but we were heading to Sagalassos. Which, the funny thing that cracks me up about that name, there's the various places that have a rep for being sort of real clubbing kind of awful places around the Mediterranean. Places getting that sort of rep. You can just imagine Sagalassos being some sort of really seedy coastal town, which all the Brits instantly call Slagalassos, and it just becomes this infamous clubbing dive where loads of broke Brits go and embarrass themselves.
I've forgotten about that. Yeah.
Well, in reality, Sagalassos is this absolutely transcendent, kind of gorgeous ruin on the side of the mountain, which again, I'm not going to show you all the footage because I'm keeping my powder dry and I'm saving most of it for later. You must
show the pièce de la résistance.
Yeah, so we've at least got to show you the fountain, which obviously has been restored but is in very good condition. Like Termessos, it really benefited from being pretty high up, so it's not exactly like in the valley where everyone's just walking past for 2,000 years. And when you build stuff on slopes and they get abandoned, slopes are very happy just to go whoop. That's why we have so many Greek theatres from antiquity, because they were generally built into sort of hillsides, which saves on construction. And the hillside, when they get abandoned, just goes whoop and just slides down and covers them over, just waiting to be uncovered, in 2,000 years later. Yeah, so that's very handy. Sagalassos was really special, especially because it's quite out of the way. It's really worth going. It is a UNESCO site, and it's kind of cracks, but when you go to specifically UNESCO sites, they always have their extra sort of spit and polish, and just the ticket office and the toilets are always a bit nicer. This one in particular seemed to have gone with the whole Bond villain layer kind of chic. There was
I could see that.
It looked like it. I mean, obviously it wasn't built in the 60s, but it was that kind of modernist design built into the hillside. I was half expecting I'd go into that building looking for the toilet, take a wrong left, and then you go and there's a room full of swivel chairs and a bald man with a white cap, and it's oh, sorry, wrong room. So anyway, Sagalassos is quite a long way out, but in fairness, the drive there was really beautiful as well, kind of through the mountains. And again, the highways are pretty great, so it's well worth it. If you want something really special.
Indeed, yeah, I enjoyed it a great deal.
So we drove back. There's actually quite a few waterfalls in the Antalya region. It's weird that that's their sort of USP, but yeah, these are the
as if they didn't already have it all,
Yeah, oh, come on, guys, leave something for the rest of us. These are the Duden waterfalls. Oh, I say one of the Duden waterfalls. There's actually 2.
Dude,
that was pretty beautiful. A bit surreal, really. That was pretty busy as well.
Yeah, that was an attraction. That was well populated and well subscribed. But it's quite lovely, and it's quite extensive, so you don't feel packed in.
Yeah, that was well worth visiting. And then we jumped on the road. It considering it's just down the river, like the same river, but it took quite a long time to drive eventually to the coast to see the other Duden waterfalls. Now,
yes, the other ones.
These are special. It's actually not often you see a waterfall this tall just cascading right into the sea.
Yeah, it was amazing.
So, yeah, the Duden waterfalls, they're just crazy beautiful, but if you're going to pick one of them, the one, say, by the coast was just really special. I was hoping we were going to be able to catch the sunset, but just the time it took to kind of go across the metropolitan area of Antalya took quite a while. So by the time we got to the beach, the sun had pretty much dipped below the horizon, but this has got to be one of the sort of highlights of the whole day. And in fairness, Sean had been very patient. I'd sort of promised him beaches, but like on the first day, we didn't really have time to dip into like Phaselis or Olympos.
Yeah, I was insistent on the point of getting in the sea at some point.
Yeah, and so this is sort of second half of September, and even after the sun had gone down, I was like, oh, is the water going to be really chilly? No, bath water.
Yeah, it was bewildering. I don't seem to recall, anything quite like it. Any such welcoming temperatures of a sea.
Yeah, it was so good, and as well, just having like the mountains in the distance. That's what's so lovely about this part of the coast. Like that is a memory I'm just always going to cherish.
Yeah,
like,
indeed.
Swimming in the water, kind of at dusk, with all the colours. That particularly inspired one of the tracks you're hearing in the background now.
Yeah, it's lovely because as the sea kind of bobs you up and down, you're looking at the mountains along the coast, and they're all kind of jostling, and they're all differently toned, and they're kind of moving against each other.
Yeah.
That's just so gorgeous. And then dinner.
Yeah, well, the best thing was as well, like, do you remember, right by the beach, there's this massive long strip for, I don't know how many kilometres it is, and it is just full of like such great restaurants. I mean, I've talked about this before, again, the food to landscape qualitative ratio, but like, you go to most beaches in England, and because they know they have like pretty much a guaranteed like captive audience, they just don't put any effort in. And so they're just these crumbling like wrecks of places, like, oh, grief. Whereas these were just like amazing outlets that look like they opened like just a month or two ago.
Yeah.
And the best part of it is, so at the time of recording, the lira is incredibly low versus most world currencies. And this was still true in 2020. So you could go to a restaurant, sit down, order whatever you like. You know, sometimes the thing is like, oh, do I order this? But if I order this, I'll miss out. Just order them both. I know that's really wasteful, you probably won't finish them, but you can order them both because the approximate retail value will be hovering around like maybe £3 or £4.
Yeah.
Get a drink, get another drink, get an espresso, get a Turkish tea,
get a whiskey
just get
drink.
all of it.
Get a vodka drink.
Yeah, get a whiskey. The Chumbawamba protocol.
Yeah.
A whiskey drink, a vodka drink, a lager drink, and a cider drink. Don't do that, you'll end up in hospital. But yeah, it's amazing. Like, you feel like so wealthy just be able to order all these amazing dishes, and the final bill coming to like a tenner or something.
Yeah.
So that was a really great evening. Okay, so final day. Again, got up in the morning, kind of explored around Antalya. It's just the most cats and stray dogs. It's kind of cute how all the stray dogs have like matching piercings. Look at that, that's nice. We had just a couple of things. We'd packed the itinerary so full that we hadn't actually seen some of the main historic highlights of Antalya yet. One of them being Hadrian's Gate.
Oh yeah, that was pretty flamboyant, pretty covered in stuff.
Yeah, it's quite impressive. It's like, and now I understand why Hadrian was walking like that. I've seen Hadrian's Gate. No one's going to get that joke. That's not going to land, is it?
It's a spelling joke, yeah.
Yeah, you see it written down. Then we quickly made it down to the water's edge for let me get this right, the Hidalik Tower, which, again, it looks like it could be a lot more modern, but it's been there since Roman times. It's pretty ancient.
Nice.
Had a quick coffee just down by the sort of tram tracks, and again, the fact you can order all this stuff for like just a few pounds was amazing. So yeah, massively fond of the actual city of Antalya itself. Like, it's a definite recommend. Anyway, we got out of there. We quickly went down to the Kursunlu waterfall.
Which one's that? Because I've seen a few waterfalls.
Yeah. Now the thing with this one was, it's a little bit outside the sort of main city of Antalya. It was actually a bit of a trickle, to be honest. It was in September, so, there's been the whole summer with, not much rain. And so as a result, this waterfall was like a bit underfed. So even though it's this lovely sort of area, and there's lots of tourist infrastructure, like this was a big sort of place to visit, the waterfall itself was not exactly a sort of gushing torrent. It was more of just like a dripping tap.
No.
But it looks still lovely. The nice thing about this is, and I forgot about this was actually when you and I first talked about doing a podcast together.
Yeah, I seem to recall that was the moment.
We were just getting out of the car at Kursanu, and you sort of suggested it, and I was saying like, oh yeah, that would be really cool. I don't know if I've got time, but so we're going to talk about more about this at the end. But one of the reasons I wanted to get Sean on is because we've got a podcast. It's sort of a side project to what we're doing here, so we'll tell you more about it at the end. Anyway, so Kursanu Waterfalls. Yeah, pretty nice, though I say not quite as impressive as the Duden. Maybe if you go there in sort of spring or early summer when they're sort of fed by a bit more rainwater, they might be a bit better. Yeah,
I mean, it's very, very tranquil and lovely.
So we had 3 ruined cities we want to see on this day. The first one is Pergay. There's so much there. There's this crazy ancient theatre. There's a stadium sitting there, like in reasonably good condition. Stadiums normally get wrecked, like they just don't survive well. They get plundered for masonry or whatever.
Right.
But the fact you can actually see it pretty convincingly there, and then just rows and rows of columns you can see for the sort of agora and the main sort of avenues down. Again, I'm not going to sort of super deep dive into all the history of it. One of the things that really cracked me up at the archaeological sites, actually. Not surprising that Turkey would be particularly cagey about this after, I don't know, like Heinrich Schliemann and Troy and everything. But they have these signs up, which is like, look at this. It's like, oh yeah, don't take any antiquities like home in your luggage. Now that's like, I get that's quite a good way to design the logo until you actually see some of the Doric columns lying around. It's like, you can crush. You can crush several men under that, as if you're going to be slipping that into your like carry-on luggage. Like, oh, don't mind me. What's that, EasyJet? We're over the weight limit.
Well,
can't think why.
Yeah, you need someone really stacked to just move it, and I mean the bulge. I think it would be fairly conspicuous.
Yeah, you think? Like you'd struggle to even get that on a pallet.
Yeah.
So yeah, look, don't take antiquities or whatever, but just cracked me up the idea that these particular Doric columns would just be someone just nonchalantly like slipping one under a jacket or something. One thing that did really crack me up. Bear in mind, in the past, like when I first visited Mycenae, I got scolded for setting up this real little thin tripod just to get a few sort of stable shots. This was within 30 seconds, an attendant come up to me and said, "No, excuse me, sir, you can't use it."
Are you gonna?
So I'm kind of accustomed to sometimes archaeological sites being a bit cagey about you taking a tripod in. There's a guy walking around. At first, it looks like he's setting up like an anti-aircraft battery. At a closer glance, I think he was carrying around one of the sort of home video cameras you could get in the 90s, where they were large enough to house an entire VHS tape.
Whoa.
Like a full-size VHS tape, which you sort of feed into the side. And again, dude's carrying a tripod about as big to match. And he is just hefting this over his shoulder. I mean, look, dude's enthusiastic, full marks to you, but I feel bad that he was hauling all this like equipment around just to essentially get like, what is it, 240 lines of horizontal resolution that you get on VHS or whatever the number is. So that was Pergay. That was really good, and it's pretty close to Antalya as well, so definitely make that one a priority if you're in Antalya. The next one is Aspendos, which kind of sounds like a superlative on its own. It's like, yes, look at this, behold this great theatre. This is Aspendos.
See, I just think of asbestos, and I just think,
behold this great theatre, which will kill you.
Yeah, spend too much time there, you'll get aspendosis.
One of the things, and I keep forgetting how to say this because it's in Latin, but what this has surviving, or at least it's been restored, is the, I want to say, Scanefrons. The way it's spelled, it looks like it should be pronounced in Scottish, like, aye, the Scanefrons.
Like a Robbie Burns poem.
Yeah, something like that. But that's the big sort of back behind the stage, and because that's there, it really, you're enclosed in this amazing space.
Yeah.
As you can see, I couldn't even back up far enough to get a proper wide shot of this. Bear in mind, this is now theatre number 6 that it's theatre number 5 we'd seen on this trip, because Olympos, that was the only one that didn't actually have a theatre or a little Odeon or whatever.
Yeah, that did surprise me.
No, wait, it did. Oh, no, that's the thing. It did have a theatre.
It did.
We didn't get around to that point.
I think the problem with
on the wrist.
Olympos is that it just had everything.
Anyway, yeah, Aspendos is great, and everyone's like there for the theatre. Quite a few people know this is here because you see the photos do the rounds. Everyone's like, oh, whoa, I've got to see that. But there's also a lot of the ruined ancient city surviving at pretty pretty impressive heights nearby as well. So do make sure, don't just exit once you've seen the theatre. Behind it is also some fantastic remains that you really should make a point of seeing as well. So that was great. We then got to, I know it looks like side, fairly sure it's actually supposed to be pronounced C-Day.
That just sounds a bit pretentious.
Yeah, it's actually called C-Day.
You're a thorn in my C-Day.
But let's not call the Turkish pretentious. Like, we're not pretentious, you're pretentious. We are pretty pretentious, let's be honest. And yeah, C-Day was amazing. To be honest, by this point, it's kind of inevitable. It was towards the end on the third day. I was actually running quite low on camera battery at this point. I hadn't planned it very well.
Yeah.
And I think I hadn't really eaten much that day as well. So I remember I was really my batteries were running low on all fronts. It's quite remarkable how some of the ruins have just got the sand from the beach just encroaching into them.
I had a real pleasant time at C-Day. I mean, there was a lot of rambling to be done, a lot of walking around because the various relics and whatever are fairly spaced apart. But yeah, I think I should remember having a very fine conversation with someone who just saw that I was extremely pale, knew I was a tourist, and and started up a conversation. And yeah, he was. I think he told me I was welcome. So.
Well, that's lovely.
I got a real nice vibe about the people, and sometimes I try on this fantasy about what it would be like to live in a place I visit, and yeah, I could see myself living there. It's gorgeous. Yeah,
I mean, I'm always really pleased when the locals are friendly, because let's face it, they're not obliged to be, and it's perfectly understandable if they're not. You know, they're used to just having all these clueless people swarming around their town, not knowing the language, just generally getting in the way on the pavement. In England, we're actually, even though we're famed internationally for our politeness, we're super rude. We are just the worst. We're so judgmental and impatient. And so whenever you go to places like Turkey or Greece, and everyone is just lovely for basically no reason, just for the benefit of just being nice.
I think we can do the performance of politeness really well and very convincingly. But yeah, generally as a population, it's not necessarily in our nature.
Yeah. I can't remember who said this specifically, but it was something like, beware the British when they grow polite. It's normally means we're actually furious. So yeah, again, gotta hand it to pretty much everyone we met in Turkey. Really friendly. There were quite a good level of English in Antalya, the city.
Yeah.
It varied a little bit outside, but with a bit of smiling and some sign language and everything. We sort of got by, and yeah, everyone was that we encountered was super friendly, and no one was tourists. So yeah, that was just lovely. So we got into the actual sort of town of C-Day. Oh, the theatre was really impressive as well. Again, by this point, I wish I'd had a bit more battery. So, for example, there were some nice temple ruins by the waterfront that I only had get 3 seconds of this, right? You get this whole routine where you have to keep turning the camera off and on again so it doesn't run out of battery. It was so stupid. So we had food. I didn't get any footage of this. And then basically that was the end of the 3 days. We had to get back to the airport. Had a little bit of drama at Antalya Airport, considering all the forms and checks you had to do during the plague years. I say that in past tense, we're kind of still in those. But this could have been much worse, I guess. So Sean here, first of all, lost his boarding pass.
Yeah.
Which, normally that wouldn't be a problem, because, I'm still like a dinosaur who, prints them off at home onto A4 paper like a nerd. But, of course, normally you can just pull up the EasyJet app and just be so boot, QR, whatever. But at Antalya, the app specifically said, oh, no, you can't, they're not available at this airport. So we were just the clock was ticking down, and you can't get off the app, so it's if that piece of paper is floating in a ditch somewhere in Antalya, we are going to really struggle to get on this plane. Thankfully, it was just at the bottom of all Sean's things, so that turned out all right. We had to empty out every single possession that came out of your bag. It was the very final thing plastered to the bottom of your case.
Yeah, indeed. And beware Dave when he becomes quiet.
I was very polite about the whole thing.
Yeah.
So we got past that drama, and there's some, I don't remember the exact tangle that... just bear in mind, the protocol through the airport is not as straightforward as somewhere like Gatwick, so just be on alert with that. It's not too bad, you just need to be aware that the protocol's a bit different. Anyway, that was 3 days in Antalya, which was a tremendous rush, And I say, if Sean hadn't been driving to all these places and hadn't been amazing and like a great sport, so yeah, I don't know how this episode's going to do. I feel like the longer episodes we put up tend to get so fewer clicks because people are like, oh, I don't have 35 minutes to watch. So I don't know how we'll do. I don't
know. I put on the longer stuff when I'm cooking or something.
We are going to release some episodes on Roman ruins and Byzantine stuff and a whole bunch of other things. I mean, next year, if I can manage it, we're going to be doing some episodes on the Venetian Republic.
Wow.
We've been sort of referencing that in quite a few videos now.
This is Dave's favourite.
This is the problem. That spiraled into... It's hovering, I think, around... It's somewhere between 15, maybe 20 episodes.
Wow.
I have the worst problem with mission creep. Like, I start off and like, oh yeah, there's a few cool things here. Then I discover there's other ones I didn't know about. And there's something about... I'm expecting there's some gadfly going to appear in the comments like, noob, you didn't know about, like, insert obscure location here. I don't think anyone's like that. I'm sure I'm just projecting on the world that that's actually what I'm like, and so I just assume that that's what everyone else is like. So this is why these episodes are sort of spiraling way out of control, which is also why we're not going to be getting any Roman episodes for a few years.
That's fair enough. I mean, it's good to have too much to do than not enough.
Probably. You can ask Jen on that one. But anyway, alongside all those episodes, which I'm kind of in the process of working on, we're starting a podcast.
Yes.
It's going to be called The Double Yellow Parking Space. It's going to be up on YouTube, and we're going to be putting out... It will at least be on Spotify. This is a stupid thing about doing this segment before we've actually uploaded it. We've definitely done this in the wrong order. But it's basically Sean and I kind of shooting the breeze on... Because you can probably tell, we've been a few places together.
Yeah.
And often on the sort of drives between these, we've kind of had to devise various ways to pass the time. And the various kind of things we end up getting up to and firing back and forth, we sort of looked at each other and were like, there's a podcast to be had here. So there'll be links for that in the description if you enjoy us talking. You know, I actually get a lot of comments, people like, oh, you talk too much in the comments. So it's not for you guys, but it's... Have you guys been on YouTube? Like, I know a lot of travel content. It's essentially just people filming like their girlfriends in bathing suits.
Is it?
It's literally. I mean, it's always there in the thumbnail. Like, 3 days in Corfu. Here's my girlfriend's bum. Which I don't want to sound like too antiquated here, but that's like, hey everyone, come and lech at my partner. You want the vague promise of some mild titillation? Click on this video. It's like, really? That's what you're going with? You want to just say straight up front, oh, I have nothing of value to contribute. Well, here's my girlfriend's bum.
Well, next time I could invest in some shorter shorts if you want.
That'd be really testing the social. I know I was saying like how liberal, relaxed Antalya was, but you and I try walking around there in like booty shorts. My really quite hairy bum. On display for everyone to see.
Oh god.
Let's not do that.
Yeah, well, that'll be an interesting way to get in prison.
But anyway, yeah, check out the Double Yellow Parking Space at places where podcasts exist. And thank you for sticking around for this one. Sean, thank you so much for being on.
Well, it's my pleasure. It's been
nice not just to have my voice on these episodes for a change. I was like... It's called the Forest Jungle Collective, and yet it's only ever me talking. So it's nice to finally pull some more of the collective in. The next episodes after this are going to be the Crete episodes. Then after that, I've got another trip that I did with Sean and Cal, where we were going around Greece. So we're going to be...
that was amazing.
That's why I had to get this Antalya episode out of the way, because I've got this whole like chain of episodes which all like link to each other. So it's like if we don't do the Antalya thing now, it's going to be embarrassing if we're recording this in like 2023. We're like, hey, that trip from 3 years ago. Like, this information does have a half-life.
Yeah.
So, like, if you're recording travel stuff like 3 years later, it's like, are any of the coffee shops you're referencing even still in business?
And I'm worried, my memory will just taint reality a bit,
So, yeah, you can find those on the channel, and we'll catch you all very soon.
Yes. Bye.